Hello, I'm Olivier Kamanda with Foreign Policy Digest, and we are back with another segment of Know the World You Live In. We're joined today by Knight Kiplinger, editor-in-chief of Kiplingers.com, and today we'll be talking a bit about the energy market, trying to get an understanding of what the oil bubble is, whether it's here to stay, what different views there are on it, and how it really affects our daily lives. So, welcome.
Nice to be with you, Olivier. You know, in the last year, the price of petroleum has more than doubled. Does strong global demand for petroleum, do strong growth rates in China and India and Latin America account for that by themselves? I don't think so. We know that production is running flat out. We know that refining capacity is tight around the world. We know that there isn't a great cushion of supply around the world. But something else is going on besides the fundamentals of supply and demand. And to me, the something else is speculation in commodities, especially the pouring of money by American pension funds, hedge funds, and small investors, individual investors using commodity mutual funds, exchange-traded funds to invest in commodities. I think that the speculative premium, which is not general supply and demand, use of oil related,
Right,
accounts for $20, $30, $40 of today's price of petroleum. You never know if you're really in a bubble until after the fact,
right,
until the bubble begins to deflate, ideally not pop. But I think that as global demand begins to slacken a little bit in a softer world economy in the rest of '08 and '09, I think that some of the pressure will come off the supply of demand, off the supply of petroleum. We'll see a little less demand. And I think some of the investors who have poured money into commodities as a sure thing, ever rising,
right,
an alternative to stocks or bonds or money market funds, will recognize that this is a very risky speculative market, and perhaps it's not the right place to be putting the pension funds of American workers. This is not to say that the demand is going to fall off, because the global economy is going to continue to boom. You have tens of millions of people in India and China who do not own automobiles, who want to own automobiles. Even though the demand for petroleum is going to slacken in the United States as motorists dig in their heels against the high price of petroleum, $4, $4.50, whatever, demand is going to remain high around the world. I'm not forecasting a collapse in petroleum prices, but I think that the speculative premium, the geopolitical risk premium about possible war with Iran accounts for an unappreciated, unrecognized part of the price of petroleum today.
okay.
The United States is going to use a little less petroleum. We're going to be developing more and more ethanol, and ethanol has its own issues too, but it is a bit of a safety valve on petroleum. And I think that this will gradually bring down the price of petroleum over the next year or two.
Well, it sounds like the market, or at least those who manipulate the market, are somewhat responsible for this, the high price of the cost, or high price of oil.
It's a part of it,
Okay.
yes. I'm not going to blame speculation or commodities investors for most of it, but it's a portion of that high price, yes.
So then, what other factors are there that sort of the average consumer can do to help promote alternative energies, or other policies that may help bring down the price of oil,
Yes.
and other energy considerations?
American consumers have had a long penchant for big, powerful engines that are fuel inefficient, large, heavy vehicles. That's turned on a dime right now. The plunging sales of SUVs and light trucks really reflects this high price of gasoline today. Detroit made those cars, those trucks, those SUVs, because Americans wanted them. It was a real market response. Americans are moving towards smaller vehicles. That will help. Americans are driving a bit less. That will help take some of the demand pressure off of petroleum. Now, you know, a lot of the popular alternative fuels are not direct motor fuels.
Right.
When we talk geothermal and hydroelectric and wind power, we're talking about electricity. Now, electricity will play a big future in the American automobile industry. If we can move away from the internal combustion engine, have more and more electric cars, then the question is, what kind of fuel is powering the electric car? If it's electricity from coal-fired power plants, sure, that reduces our dependence on foreign petroleum, doesn't do a whole lot for clean air.
Right.
So the best scenario would be plug-in electric cars using electricity from nuclear power plants. The United States has fewer nuclear power plants in operation today than 25 years ago. We are decommissioning nuclear power plants faster than we're building new ones. That has to change. Nuclear power is safe and clean. Other nations of the world generate significant portions of their electricity from nuclear power. In France, it's what?
78%.
78% in France. In Japan, over a third. There are some Eastern European countries generating over 80% of their electricity from nuclear power. We can have simple, standardized nuclear power plant designs that can be approved and permitted more quickly, and we can boost U.S.'s share of nuclear power. What is it today?
Something like 19%.
19, less than 20%. We could get that up into the 50% range in the next decade if we recognize the superiority of nuclear power over coal-fired plants. In the meantime, coal is America's dominant fuel. We can burn it more cleanly, and the coal industry is making great strides in burning it more cleanly. This transition is going to be gradual, but electric cars, non-polluting electric cars from a non-polluting power source, atomic power, will be a key factor in America's energy future.
Well, thank you for putting that into context. I've got one last question for you. In addition to the pressure that high petroleum and energy costs have on consumers, a lot of companies, manufacturers are having to readjust, how they do their business, where they locate plants, things like that. Give us a little perspective on what impact that has on companies' decisions to set up new plants, to set up distribution centers, how they make sort of the large-scale strategy decisions in this world where we have 145 or 150 by the time this airs, probably, cost of per barrel cost of oil.
That's a really good question, Olivier. The soaring cost of petroleum, diesel fuel, gasoline, all sorts of motor fuels, is pushing up the price of global transport. One of China's big advantages was the low cost of fuel for getting those inexpensive consumer products across the Pacific Ocean to ports in California. Now, with the price of petroleum soaring, transport costs have become a big factor in the total cost of an import. There are North American manufacturers, U.S. and Canadian manufacturers, that are now reconsidering some of the manufacturing outsourcing they did to Asia because of the high price of Pacific shipping today. We at Kiplinger are hearing about companies that are bringing back some manufacturing that they outsourced to Asia 10 years ago. They're bringing it back first to Mexico, which is inexpensive and just across our own border.
Right.
And even better, they're bringing back some manufacturing to American plants where they had cut back or where they had closed the plant. So the high cost of transportation makes domestic production, whether it's in the U.S. or in Europe or anywhere, domestic production, agriculture, manufactured goods, making it more attractive than manufacturing thousands of miles away and incurring enormous shipping costs to bring it into the home economy. I think that's generally a positive development. Now, I would like to see the price of petroleum come down. That would be an even more positive development, but this is an unappreciated silver lining to the high price of petroleum. It's going to bring some manufacturing back to the United States. Not large amounts of it. but already we're hearing that the siting decisions for manufacturing are tipping in favor of manufacturing, making something closer to home than farther away from home.
Great. Well, that's great news to have, considering the cost of everything is going up. So thank you very much for giving us some insight on the world economy and particularly energy prices and the energy market.
You're very welcome, Olivier.
Sure. Thank you.